Hey, everybody. Dan, Adam, can you hear me?
Yes.
I got you.
I'm so happy to have us back and reunited in Saratoga Springs.
That's
Good to
awesome.
be home.
Yes.
Good to be home. Well, welcome to Talking Saratoga, a weekly podcast with insight on the latest news, debate, and discussion from Saratoga Springs, a city that has never suffered from a shortage of opinions. We are very happy to have Adam back with us. He was in Poland, as most of our viewers know. And last week, we were all kind of traveling different spots. I missed you guys last week a lot. Missed my Monday chat, or my Wednesday chat, rather. But a lot has happened in the last couple of weeks.
It's Saratoga.
It is Saratoga at its finest.
Yes. Yep.
So where should we dive in? Do you want to start with the city council meeting last night?
Yeah. So Robin, you went to the city council meeting, and to give a little background, one of the reasons you went is James has made some moves in the police department, for better or for worse. I think we know how you feel about it, Robin. But one thing he did is he asked a police officer to change charges that were already filed, is my understanding. Another thing is that they effectively defunded the assistant police chief job. And Robin, why don't we start there? Because what happened when you defund the assistant police chief? The assistant police chief doesn't go away, right? What happens?
So that's a good question. So basically, it does. If you want to get rid of a position, you can, in theory, go to the finance commissioner and ask the finance department to defund that budget line. And so you're effectively eliminating the budget line from your budget, and the position no longer exists. It's not budgeted. You can't pay for it. So we will not have an assistant chief of police moving forward. Bob Gilson was promoted to that position in December. He civil service law offers him the opportunity to go back to his previous grade, which was lieutenant. So he'll be staying on with the department as a lieutenant, which is wonderful because he is such an asset and a real leader, and someone that, I know a lot of the younger officers learn a lot from. So I'm deeply grateful that he has weathered this with such integrity and is going to stay with the department.
Now, does that mean we just have one more lieutenant?
Correct.
Okay.
So
right.
the financial,
there's not like a down step throughout the department.
So there is. So it's kind of a little complicated, but by defunding,
effect, right, Robin? Sorry.
Yes. No, it's exactly that. It's a domino effect. So by knocking Gilson back down to a lieutenant, the most recently promoted lieutenant will get knocked down to a sergeant. The most recently promoted sergeants will get knocked down, and so on and so forth. So there is a domino effect of demotions that also happened. And it's the financial savings from the grades and those positions that Commissioner Montanino is saying he's going to put towards additional support for the patrol officers. But what that boils down to is, I think he's actually going to create an additional sergeant and then put money towards hiring one additional officer. I don't think he'll have enough money to do both of those. But to me, it's a really dramatic decision to eliminate that assistant chief job. And what you get on the other end, one additional sergeant and at some point, maybe an additional patrol officer. Like, to me, that doesn't add up. I don't know what you guys think.
Dan, what does that do for morale, right? I mean, you were a police officer. What happened? You got promoted and 6 months later you got demoted again.
In isolation, it would be a pretty hard morale hit. In succession, with all the really bad and I don't know, for lack of a better word, dumb things Montanino is doing to these men and women that obviously I'm biased. I am a retired police officer, so I'm probably going to generally back them, but I'm not afraid to point out where they're wrong. But the one that's wrong here is Jim Montanino, and the hits keep on coming from this guy that they just don't make sense. And it's almost like if you wanted to destroy the morale of the police department, I would use his template, because he every 10 days, maybe more often than that, he's come up with a really horrible idea and he runs to the press with it first. He doesn't talk internally. He doesn't lead. He showed some signs early that, wow, he brings some things to the table. And now I'm realizing, boy, if I had that conclusion, and Robin, you weren't there, but I was, let me acknowledge, I was wrong, because he is, again, I've got people emailing me from Florida saying, what is this guy doing? And it's horrible. I feel so sorry for the men and women that do a great job. I will back this police department. They are getting some criticism from the fringes, I guess you'll say, well, maybe that's not fair, but the criticism they're getting to me is largely unwarranted.
Well, what bothered me about it is the fact that this was buried in the city council agenda. There was no public comment. Nobody had the opportunity to come to express their feelings on it, to give their input on it. It just seemed like something that, again, this group does. We have a kind of core group of Democrats who got elected, and it seems like they make these backroom deals and they just kind of push it through city council, and they don't really seek the public's input on it. And it's just not how I think the city government should work. It should be, and I think it does take away from police reform. I think there is a need for police reform, but the police reform has to have buy-in from both sides. It has to be collaborated. It has to be talked about. It just can't be rammed down the police throat. It can't be rammed down the public's throat. And I feel that that's what they're doing. Robin, go ahead.
No, it's interesting you brought up the police reform, because I was thinking about that at yesterday's council meeting, because for the last several council meetings, there's been a public hearing on the Civilian Review Board. And that was a huge cornerstone of the police reform resolution that we passed last year. That was the governor's executive order 203. There was a collaborative and they made recommendations. The city council adopted them almost exactly a year ago. And the Civilian Review Board was one of their biggest priorities. And we went through 2 iterations of a Civilian Review Board, one that the collaborative had written up, then a committee was assigned that developed another one, and ultimately last fall, the city council decided that it should be punted to the next council and they should be the ones to run with it and create it. And Jim Montanino was really very vocal about that when he was campaigning as being a priority. So it's been on the council meetings as a public hearing, but no draft has been given to the public. So I don't know what people are meant to be coming in to comment about. There's nothing to comment. He hasn't put a draft out yet. So I just thought it was puzzling. And all these other issues that have popped up over the last couple of weeks just seem to really be distracting from some of the core issues he was running on. And it's really, as you were saying, Dan, it's a little bit odd, the headlines, right? Because we've got the assistant chief defunded. We had the mini SPAC idea for Caroline Street. We've had an adultery policy, and we've had accusations of racism and gross misconduct towards one of the highest ranking female officers in the department that have been like really wild. And there's a lot of race baiting going on and inaccurate information. And it got very dramatic last night. We can talk about that too, but that's a lot of headlines.
I want to talk about each one of these, but before we get off of this one, I always like to think we can provide a little insight. And you were in the department, you were essentially involved in the hiring or the promotion of the assistant police chief, and that was an issue because that was after Jim had won the election, and he thought that was his job to promote. So my question is, do you think, this is all speculation at this point, but do you think this was done really because he thought the department was top heavy, or do you think there's any politics behind the scenes here?
So my gut, and this is just my feeling, his deputy is a former police officer of the Saratoga Springs Police Department who had a very contentious relationship with the department, a long disciplinary record. And I think that he has a real axe to grind, and Jim relies on him for a lot of information. And so when Jim was talking about defunding the assistant chief line, he cited 2 facts that he had gotten from his deputy. One of them was that allegedly 40% officers who are on patrol don't leave City Hall when they're on patrol. And I was like, that's just not possible. Like, that is mathematically not possible. I have spent so many hours there. There is no universe in which 40% of the on-duty officers are just sitting in City Hall. It's crazy. And so that came directly from his deputy. They didn't show us how they got there, what the numbers were. As Adam, you said, there was no documentation about this agenda item. It was like buried in this vague line. So I think he's getting bad information. And so I don't know if they're overtly political decisions, but that's how they're landing.
If I could jump in here, it's on the assistant chief position. You have what I would call like a mid-sized department. It's not a 20-member police department. It's not a 1,000-member police department. It's low 60s, right, Robin?
So it's about 79 in total, but active duty officers are in the low 60s.
Okay.
It's 39 patrol officers. I could do the whole breakdown.
Okay.
Yes.
A mid-sized department. There have been a lot of focus on the department, regardless of whether it's good or bad. In today's society, there's going to be a lot of changes going on in policing. So, and if you look at it from the negative side, which I don't think any of us do, there's people saying there's issues there. There's a lawsuit on the Darrell Mount thing. I don't think it's a lawsuit with merit, but it is a lawsuit. So my point here is that they're gutting the leadership level, and they're going to leave one person at top. There's no assistant chief. There's not any captains. So we drop down from one chief who has a life and takes vacation and so forth, down to lieutenants. You're gutting a police department leadership just when it needs a quality and effective leadership. That is counterintuitive. That is mismanagement.
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. This is a department with a $30 million budget that has a population that goes from 30,000 9 months out of the year to 75,000 in the other 3 months. We handle 28,000 calls for service every year. We do big city policing with a little city budget. And to say something like the assistant chief and the chief both work on the budget, therefore their job responsibilities, they're duplicative and they're inefficient. No, it's actually just a huge budget and requires more than one person working on it. The policy reforms that people would like to see, the community policing measures, none of those things happen. And you don't have enough staffing, especially at the top, because they get bogged down and they don't have anyone to help do any administrative anything. So they're doing their emails, calls, meetings, community members. It's just impossible to run it as to its true potential with this limited amount of staffing now.
Right. Let's move on to adultery, and now seems to be a issue that the Jim felt the need to address with a policy on a zero adultery tolerance rule within the department. Yes. What the heck is this about?
I had gotten wind of this and thought, that sounds crazy, right? First of all, I didn't know that adultery was still considered illegal in some weird old penal law kicking around New York State. But Dan, apparently that is correct.
It's on the books, never, and I mean never enforced. DAs make it clear we're not enforcing that law. They realize if it ever got to the courts, it might be issues and so forth. Listen, not only has there not been a conviction that I can think of, I don't think there's ever been an arrest. Apparently there are some historical ones, maybe back in the 70s and so forth, but it's just on the books. It's never enforced.
So basically what I could read this policy. It's not long, or it's pretty straightforward, but essentially what it says is that New York State considers adultery illegal. And if a police officer commits an illegal act, it brings like a bad reputation. It's a bad look for the department. And therefore it's now considered a fireable offense. And so it's not just within the department. So it's not like one officer having a relationship or an affair with another police officer. It's literally anybody in their private life who's going through some stuff in their marriage, and there's some adultery rumors. Apparently that's now grounds for dismissal.
Is it based on rumors? You need a certain. Aren't we innocent until proven guilty? Which goes back to Dan's point of if they'll never be found guilty. I just don't. Maybe have a policy saying, hey, if a police officer breaks the rules, it could be grounds for termination. I think or breaks the law. I think we're okay with that. But to make a point to single out adultery again, it just seems like going back
targeted.
What's going on behind the scenes here? Because I just. Robin, was adultery an issue when you were in the police department? Was this a fair question? No, I'm not kidding. Was there a big problem within the department with adulterers?
So I'll tell you, I was really disappointed that there was never a rumor that I was having an affair with someone. I was like, come on, no rumor affairs? Really? So true. Honest to God, I never heard about anyone's love life or dating life or marriage. It was really professional. those were not subjects that came up. So if there are issues, I was never aware of them. But this to me is like really an inappropriate way to handle it. We have a great human resources department in City Hall, and that's who you go to if there's this type of concern, I guess, in your department.
And also, here we are 3 months into his term. Like I said, a momentous time for policing, lots of legitimate issues to bring about. And this is what he brings about 3 months. Wow. He, like I said, every 10 days, he's got something new and bizarre that is a morale killer. But beyond that, it leads to mismanagement is what I view. It's not leadership by any extent.
Well, here's my little tip, guys, and I don't know if you think this is a good out, but if I'm a police officer over there, for some reason I'm having an affair, I get caught. My instant response is, I have an open marriage.
Yeah,
take my cues from Will Smith. It's not cheating. We have an open marriage.
Yeah, here's my little tip about keeping out. I guess just keep your little tip out, boys. That's all I can say. Keep your little tip out. No,
I'm unhearing that.
Anyway. All right, so moving on to the, good things coming 3. There was a report that Jim essentially went to a police officer, a lieutenant who had filed a charge against somebody, wanted them to increase the charge. When they declined, he essentially took action against them. Robin, is that correct? Again, being
so this is a really confusing story because the way it came to the media was kind of, it seems like through social media, and then Jim went directly to the media and told a story based on his conversation with the complainant and victim and the victim's parents. So we're talking about, I think, a 17-year-old kid here who was in a fight with some kids at a party and wanted to file a charge against the kids who he'd been in a fight with. And he had some injuries on his face, and he said, I was assaulted by these 2 kids. But it was sounds to me like it's a he said situation. There was not enough evidence to sustain an assault charge, so they were only able to bring about a harassment charge. And when that happened, the parents found out and were upset and contacted Supervisor Gasson, who then contacted James Montanino to sit down, file a complaint, and have the commissioner look into it on their behalf. And so the commissioner looked into it. He saw the injuries, pictures of the injuries, read the medical report, and talked to the supervising officer, who in this case was a lieutenant, and told her that he thought that this was enough to sustain assault charges. And she said, she obviously had disagreed. She had done her job. She had completed the investigation, and she had only found enough evidence to support a harassment charge. And so it's an interesting kind of predicament, because in this commission form of government, does the police or does the public safety commissioner have the authority to say, no, I'm overruling that and you must charge this person with assault charge? I don't know.
Dan, is there any precedence in that when you were a police officer of essentially a civilian, other than I guess the DA, coming in and having a police officer change a charge against somebody?
I will draw on my union experience. As you know, I was leadership positions with 2 PBAs, and you are putting the officer in the position of, this is what I believe to be true. You're telling me you have a different viewpoint. You're telling me I have to take your viewpoint. That sometimes leads to unions filing court battles and declaratory judgments. Judge, I'm getting 2 different. I have the law. I'm supposed to charge what I think is appropriate. I don't think what the commissioners tell me is appropriate. I don't know this precise answer of whether the commissioner can give an officer a direct order that can be held up. I don't know in the city. In the state police, everybody I answered to was a state police member of higher rank. So that was simple. It's a paramilitary organization.
I will just say, as a civilian who is elected to that position, there is no universe in which I would insert myself with I do not have this expertise. I'm a civilian. I'm an elected official. I would never insert myself into a case and say, like, no, I know more than you. You have to. It's
exactly. That was terribly handled on Jim Montanino's part. There's nothing wrong with him making an inquiry, getting together with the chief and the lieutenant and saying, and maybe even the district attorney's office, but again, his first reaction to everything is run to the press. Now, he said at the city hall meeting last night that he found out the press had it, and therefore he had to talk to the press. You don't have to. You could say, we're looking into this. We will have an answer. But instead, he goes out and he sells out the entire department, because he gets.
So the other thing we're not talking about here, though, is there is some serious underlying racial issues. The 17-year-old, there's some debate as to his race. At first, James was saying he was African American. So it was reported in the press that it was a 17-year-old African American kid who sustained these injuries, and that the other kids were white. And so Commissioner Montenegro speculated to the media that could it be that the highest charge wasn't filed because there was some underlying race or bias issue in terms of how the police were investigating. And he hoped that wasn't the case, but maybe that could be the case. And I couldn't believe it, because I just thought, first of all, you don't talk about an open investigation, right? They're investigating. You don't talk about it until you have all the information, and then you present complete information when the investigation is over to the public. So to speculate while the investigation is going on, but then also that it might be racially motivated, there could be bias, maybe, that's really damaging. That's a serious accusation.
Yeah. What bothers me, and my understanding is this is, as on a professional level, it seems to me, and Dan, you said this, there's a DA for this reason, right? A DA can change charges. A DA can increase the charges. Yes. The DA is an attorney. Jim's an attorney. And Dan, I know there's a kind of professional conduct where attorneys really are supposed to talk to attorneys. And so to go to the rank and file police officer and tell them to change their charge, it just seems to me, again, wildly inappropriate. When handle it on the level that he's at, handle it with the chief, handle it with the DA, but don't skip rank there and go around them and again continue to demoralize the department. So this is another slap to the face of our police, who really have had a tough 2 years. And granted, I'll come back to the fact of, is there a need for police reform? Yes, there is. But things like this, it really, instead of kind of bringing people together for change, it polarizes people. It forces you to be in a camp, right? It forces you to be like, this was racist, or this wasn't racist, or instead of just hey, listen, let's not have our politics and our appearances dictate how we act. Let's have what's right dictate how we react. And it just seems like Jim is not doing that.
I agree.
Well, the district attorney, Karen Hagan, came out yesterday with a very lengthy statement about this, which was really surprising, because Karen Hagan is not, she does not do press, really. She doesn't do, press conferences. You don't see her talking to the media. That's not her style. So for her to come out with this statement was unusual. It was scathing. It was scathing. She says that Commissioner Montenegro, inserted himself into an active police investigation being conducted by members of his department, and then turned to the media to publicize the premature and inaccurate take on the situation. And she goes on for multiple paragraphs to go through why she thought this was so inappropriate, his involvement, how he was involved, how he publicized it. And that also came to a head at last night's city council meeting. I don't know if, Dan, you saw the whole kind of moment after public comment where
I did. I caught some heckling. I asked you at the time. I was like, I couldn't hear the hecklers, or I assume they were hecklers, because it sounded like pretty heated. And,
I might have been one of those hecklers. Maybe
that's why you couldn't answer my text as I was texting you during the meeting. A quick point, a bit of a tangent, but I got to point out, I'm seeing this divide with the largely Democratic city council and a largely Republican county government, both with the DA's office, and then Dylan Moran took some shots at the Board of Supervisors yesterday. And I'm not taking sides on this. What I am is I'm expressing displeasure that there is such a divide, such a we're supposed to be working together for the greater good, and I'm seeing a lot of heat between those two general entities, and that's got to end. That's not going to serve.
Public safety should not be politicized, and we've gone so far. Politics seems so intertwined with everything now. It's sad, and I think our police department does a really good job of trying to take politics. I mean, they truly do it by the book, go by the evidence. And Mayor Kim and Commissioner Montagnino were both kind of making this assertion yesterday of, if someone walked into the police department with a black eye and a split lip and said, Adam Israel assaulted me, well, then we should go arrest Adam Israel for assault. Like, obviously, we just have to do it. You saw the injuries. I said it was Adam, so you go arrest him. Well, no, we actually need evidence. They investigate, and you need to be able to prove that. Can't just be because I said so, right?
It is possible this was not handled the best way possible. I don't know that. But Jim Montagnino took what was a manageable situation, happens in police work all the time, where you, like you said, you go to the DA's office, you upgrade the charges, you downgrade the charges, whatever. And he turned it into a press event. And he says, well, the press contacted me. But Jim, you didn't have to go to the press and sell out the entire department. You could have said,
no comment works, right, Dan?
I'm sorry?
The simple no comment right now, or like Robin said,
or we are looking into this and actually look into this and sit down with the right people and have a dialogue with the DA's office and the chief and so forth. And we're getting dueling statements from the commissioner and the police department. I thought it was one entity.
I know, and this was about a month ago. So this was the thing I thought was really strange. All the press identified this kid as African American. He is clearly not African American. And at last night's city council meeting, Commissioner Montagnino was talking about it and mentioned that he was African American. And there were people in the back of the room that were like, no, he's not African American. No, stop saying that. Like, stop saying that. And so it's clearly been brought up multiple times. And I don't know why.
My daughter's home. Give me one moment.
No problem. I don't know why you would continue to misidentify him and mischaracterize his race. And then as James continued, Supervisor Gaston said, I would like to ask you to not share personal, private details of this case with the public. The family has asked you multiple times to stop talking about this publicly. Like, please stop talking about this. Like, they've asked you to not make these details public. And he just kept talking. It was very odd.
She said that last night. I missed that part.
She did. She was very upset.
Wow.
Yes, this family contacted her, when they didn't get the assault charge and they were, unhappy. She connected them with Jim, and he walked us through that the whole timeline last night. And apparently they had asked him to stop talking about this because, for reasons that I could probably understand, if you have a 17-year-old kid and they're applying to college, this is not something you want in the news. This was a party. There was underage drinking,
Sure.
Kids got into a fight, but private.
To be clear, was somebody charged with harassment?
So yes, someone was charged with harassment.
I don't know why there's such a craziness about this. I don't know why, if assault charges are appropriate, then upgrade it. If they're not appropriate, it's harassment. I don't know why this turned.
It kept going back to, well, if this wasn't a black kid getting beat up by white kids, or if it was white kids getting beat up by black kids, would the charges have been different? Would the police department have handled the investigation differently? Let's speculate on that. That's what our elected officials kept putting out. And to me, the race baiting was really it was disappointing.
Yeah. I would say, I think it's worth looking into that, but the way that Jim goes about it just takes away any validity to it. Right. I don't think we can immediately dismiss that this wasn't, but we don't know the facts, and that should be discussed behind the scenes with professionals, because who knows, maybe there was a race element to this. Right now there's no, but to make these assertions with no evidence, that this was other than the circumstance that race played any issue in this, to assert that was a reason, it just to the public, it just seems like it's just really doing the police officer and the police department a disjustice by just throwing this label at them without presenting any evidence that there might have been something behind this besides the officer doing what's right.
Well, and there was a large presence from Saratoga BLM at last night's meeting, and they had posted about it online, and they were coming in because they wanted to make sure that this was not a victim who was black getting beat up by white kids and not getting the appropriate justice and punitive measures taken because he was a black victim. And so they're continuing to allow this idea that someone is African American in the situation being victimized, knowing that that's not how he identifies as a race, and continuing to put out in media. I mean, like, am I crazy, or is that wildly irresponsible?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, and it seems like they're glossing over their mistake and hoping it just goes away.
I mean, they were yelling at the council meeting while Jim was talking. He's not African American. Stop saying that. And Jim did not correct himself. It was crazy.
Yeah. Robin, you were the city council last. I mean, this is city councilmen can tend to drag on and be boring. Any other interesting things that came up at the city council last night?
So I only sat through public comment and then left. The public comment was heated, emotional. I think I'm still like a little raw from it, a little anxious from it, because it was intense. One of the things that I actually ended up making a public comment about was that someone from Saratoga BLM was talking and making a comment to the council and described our law enforcement officers as subhuman and pigs. And at the beginning of every public comment, Mayor Kim says, keep your comments respectful, kind, truthful, and to allow someone to stand there and say that our law enforcement officers are subhuman, like, to me, that's not okay. Like, you cannot, that is not kind, that is not respectful, that is not truthful. Like, that to me is just unacceptable. So I did end up making a public comment to that effect. And Commissioner Songby actually at the end of public comment also said she wanted to go on record and say that there is no human that is subhuman. Doesn't matter what your race is, if you're LGBTQ, disabled, there's no one is subhuman. And the Saratoga BLM crowd really took issue with that. And they got into a very heated back and forth, and it was tense and loud, and there was a lot going on.
Wow.
I know. So
that saddens me. All of that saddens me.
Yeah. It was quite a bit. I know there was other things discussed at the meeting. The chapter 136, which is the outdoor dining, and I know there was something about that, but I don't think there was any other like headliners from the meeting. I think that it was really the public comment period was like the main event.
Yes, the rest of the meeting was largely tepid, other than maybe Dylan Moran sort of making some accusations against county government and so forth.
It is really, we should talk about it on another episode sometime, like more in depth, but it is really wild, the dynamic between the county and the city. The political ideologies are just total opposites, but it really affects our ability to function as a city because we rely on the county for so much. And what the politics seem to be really straining that relationship right now, I'm sensing. And
to our viewers, it is our intention every week to try to mix it up, to not have it so focused on important but dry issues coming out of City Hall. We like to have some balance of some restaurant news, some SPAC news, maybe the track. And this week that probably won't be the case, but that is our intention every week. So we hope to get back to that loose formula next week.
Well, I've got one fun thing to talk about. I went to a crazy party, you guys, and it is worth mentioning because Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
Well, no, because if it's the wrong thing, I don't want to embarrass the entity I'm going to bring up, so I'm going to let you talk.
Well, so for those who don't know, I did society coverage here in Saratoga for years and years. So I've been to a lot of parties in the city. On Monday night, Saratoga Living had an outdressed party, and it was wild. The theme of it was basically wear your craziest, most over-the-top outfit ever. Come, have cocktails. We have judges, and we're going to do a best dressed contest winner. And I came in my black shirt and my black pants and my black on black and black because that's what I wear. I walked in and was like, oh, every girl that went full out wild outfits, wild dresses that like lit up like Lady Gaga looking like, and it was every style, shape, size under the sun. And everyone was just so into it, so happy. They had like a spontaneous runway show. Like it was wild, you guys. It was wild.
I read it. It literally, I think Abby Tagnelli wrote, it literally stopped traffic, and it was wild but not gaudy, right? And those were really impressive looking outfits and dresses and so forth that were on.
I think I said to my husband that I felt like I might have dropped acid because it was like the visuals of everything. It was crazy. It was Monday night. I'm like, where am I? What's happening? This is wild.
It's nice to see Saratoga kind of getting back to coming out of COVID and just some of these things and events that make Saratoga great. I saw pictures. It looked like just a fantastic time. Yes. I would have been like you, Robin. I would have worn probably this and not on the runway. But it is these kind of special, kind of quirky events are really kind of neat to see that we're getting back to somewhat normalcy after COVID.
It reminded me a little bit of the Oscars, and folks, we'll give Abby's entity a plug. Saratoga Living After Hours has some pictures. You got to see these pictures. I put one or two on Saratoga Report, but Saratoga Living After Hours is where you want to go to see some of these pictures. It's worth a look.
Robin, anybody get slapped?
Nobody got slapped, but there were some tears over not winning Best Dress. There was a little drama over controversy in the judging. But my friend Sarah McCarthy rocked it out, won Best Dress. She looked phenomenal. So if you go on Instagram, I know they have her tagged. She's Ink Revival. She looked amazing. But everyone's outfits were just over the top, wild. Everyone was super supportive, happy. There was no girl judgment. It was like the most happy girl vibe ever. And they just did a great job. And I was shamed with my black on black. Although I kind of felt cool, to be honest with you.
It's like a Halloween party for adults, right? Remember when they used to get dressed up and try to get best dressed at the Halloween costumes?
Did you try to get best dressed, Adam?
Well, the Halloween parties I went to, it wasn't the men getting dressed up, and the winner did. It wasn't best dressed, but it was something. But this seems like the adult version of it.
Halloween does get a little slutty when you get into like college years, I will say. Anyway, we digress.
You said it, not me.
I know. Well, I know we have, Adam, the kind of thing we haven't acknowledged here, you just came back from Poland and you have been really dedicating every second bit of energy to helping the Ukrainian refugees and dealing with some really intense humanitarian crises, basically, based on Russia's aggression in Ukraine. And you're home now. What are you doing now? What are you going to keep doing? Tell us where you're at and what's going on.
Yeah. So, I started this Letters of Hope for Ukraine and just asked a couple people for letters with $20 in it to take over. Like I said before, we had a house in Poland, a car. They speak a little Polish. And so I felt I could go over there and help. But what it's turned into is just this groundswell grassroots support of people in Saratoga and the greater capital district. And actually now it's gone beyond. We're getting things from, I got 100 cards and letters from a correctional facility in Arizona. It's amazing. And we have volunteers donating $20 to put in those cards. And I opened one, just, I do my due diligence, and it was just beautiful what the card was inside. Wow. So it's grown. I've teamed up with the Giving Circle, which is a not-for-profit, a 501(c)(3) or C3. And this now allows people to donate and get tax breaks for it, which is great. We've raised a bunch of money. I'm going back over next week. I'm really excited about that. Actually, there's one donor who he's coming. He donated a significant amount of money, and I said, "Why don't you come and see what we're doing?" Because I want people to feel what I feel when I'm there. It's much more traumatic for me to be home watching the news than it is for me to be with these refugees who are now safe and have a roof over their head and have safe skies. So that's really it's really special. It's grown. There's no time for quitting. Again, big props to my wife, who has been incredibly supportful for this. She knows this is very important for her and her country and our family and Saratoga and the world and democracy. So one thing I'm doing. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to give props to Kristen, who has been doing all the bows. Kristen Mason. She has just been like a rock star. All these yellow and blue bows that you see around town, they're on people's porches. They're on retailers' windows. They're everywhere. that
The-
we had
Robin,
her on the
Chris is
show.
what we needed as like a campaign manager, because not our campaign manager was good, but Chris, I mean, in the morning, she's like, this is what you're going to do today. This is what has to get done. This is where we're going to be. I have these people doing this. And
Kristen, if you're listening, we're hiring.
yeah.
and we can still buy those from Silverwood and other places, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, they're available for sale at Silverwood. But what I'm really excited about is tomorrow, Thursday at 6 p.m. at the Inn at Saratoga. I'm giving a talk that really kind of ties in a lot of what's going on, a lot of what I can't post on social media, a lot about how people have helped and what you can do to help, whether it be simply just writing a letter or in other ways, and about what it's Ukraine needs right now to beat Russia, because they are going to beat Russia. I after talking with them, this is a unbelievable country, an unbelievable culture. We're going to have a surprise guest tomorrow, kind of speak to some of the things. I spent a lot of time, put together a great presentation, and I think it'll be really interesting for people to see and hear how they can help and what's going on. And we got a bunch of donated items, so there's going to be a silent auction where you can pick up some neat stuff for I hope not pennies on the dollar, but I'm sure there's bargains in there too. So it's a free event. There's going to be a cash bar.
No tickets.
No tickets. No, just show up. There's going to be a cash bar. All the proceeds are going to be donated back. Again, the Giving Circle is going to be there taking donations. I'm going to be there talking, and it's going to be, it's really going to, I think, after being here a week, I feel writing this presentation kind of connected me back to Ukraine and how much is going on there that it's just, I don't want to say it's not being reported, but just it's being reported on a macro level. So to hear some stories on the micro level, I think is going to be really inspiring and insightful. And it's if you want to help, if you feel helpless and you want to help, just come and listen. That's, come and listen to what I have to say. And we can continue, because to win this war, it's going to be a billion people doing small little things, right? To beat this Putin's army. It's not going to be one thing. And we're seeing that with this little army that could in Ukraine, that's putting up one hell of a fight.
And isn't it just such a great overall message? Like, when we need to fight something truly evil, all the pettiness, all the little stuff falls away, and the world is coming together to fight this good versus evil fight in the most pure way possible. And I wish that kind of trickled down to countries and lives and states, because I think it's the kind of cooperation and willingness to work together and put differences aside for the greater good that needs to happen way more often.
Will this be streamed? I agree, Robin. Adam, will this be streamed at all?
So
I can stream it for you, Adam.
What's that?
I said I could stream it for you, but you might want to keep it off social media.
Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about things that I don't wish to post on social media. So for that reason, and because because there's a lot of people who are still COVID wary and who would like it streamed. So what we're going to do, and Robin, yes, I'm going to take you up on this. We'll record it and edit it. Because there's going to be a lot of good things said, but there's just certain things that it's better if they're not on social media.
Right. There's privacy issues, and we're talking about people in vulnerable situations and potentially unsafe areas. So I know privacy is important, very important. So 6 p.m. in Saratoga.
In Saratoga, exactly. Come a little early, get a seat. We have a schedule we got to follow. So
will there be a best dressed contest though?
Will there be a
No, yeah.
It'll be me.
Sorry, winner.
I'm going to be up on the podium. I'm going to be the bully from the pulpit and crown myself the best dressed.
Awesome. Well, I know I will be there, and I'm pumped. And I missed you so much when you were gone. I like having you here in Saratoga, but you provided such an unbelievable connection to something that we all were really feeling, and it really helped me at least process what was happening and feel like I was helping in this tiny, tiny little way. So I know I was so appreciative. And although I don't want you to leave again, I'm glad you're going back over and seeing this through. It's just awesome.
Yeah, I will say this: seeing all the bows, the ribbon, the storefronts, the stores that are donating for Red Cross, great. If you saw what Zelensky said during the Grammys or Emmys, I get those confused. do what you can, right? He asked me
Yeah.
to do what you can. Wear a bow, post on social media, tell a friend, donate, do anything. It's these small things. And it was, I was happened to be watching that, and when Zelensky popped up, and it really validated what I feel I'm doing, and it validates what Saratoga is doing. Because when I was over there and I was getting pictures of all this support, all these T-shirts in the windows with Ukraine flags, and all these bows and ribbons in my home city, and to show the refugees I was working with, and just to see it really, they felt it. They really felt, and I felt it when I came back and drove around Saratoga and saw the bows and saw the flags. I drove outside of the city, and there's homes in the country that have that fly the Ukrainian flag, and those things matter. You put those things in the universe, and a million, the butterfly effect, a million or a billion little things was going to have a big difference. So thank you, Saratoga, for your support, and continue to follow the Letters for Ukraine, Letters of Hope for Ukraine Facebook page. Come tomorrow, but and if you don't donate to me, donate to somebody else. But this is what's going to help save Ukraine. Slava Ukraine.
I love it. I love it. So do we want to move on to our cheers and jeers? Anything else that we missed from our last 2 weeks that we want to talk about before we go to our cheers and jeers? You guys are quiet this afternoon. Nothing?
Nothing.
All right, who's got a cheer or jeer?
I'll dive in here. It's clearly springtime. Saratoga has taken on a new life. There's some issues at City Hall and so forth, and there's issues everywhere. What Adam's doing in the Ukraine is inspiring. But my cheer is generally to Saratoga Springs and everybody that lives in it. We talked about the Dress to Impress, Overdressed to Impress event, the business owners that are making this city, giving it the vibrancy that it is, and the customers, of course, and the residents. I'm just very positive, very high on Saratoga Springs in general. So I'll give them a big cheer. Everybody, the city itself, as well as the people and owners and retailers and restaurant owners that make this city. And beyond that, everybody that just makes this city, the track workers, because the track is opening in less than 2 weeks, the Oklahoma training track. A jeer. There is a strong effort being made in the legislature is by lobbyists and some downstate legislators. Well, not just limited to downstate, to basically take the horse industry out at its knees by cutting the financing that comes from VLTs and other sources for the breeding funds and things like that. They're pointing to the money, and this isn't just rich people. They keep saying it's a bunch of rich people getting treated well. These are small breeding farms. These are feed store owners, veterinarians, farriers, track workers. This is horrible, and it's basically a shot at Saratoga County because we rely so much on the horse racing industry, and this is picking up steam. There are stakeholders within the horse industry that are taking very clear notice of what is going on here. These people that are against the horse industry are taking the long game, and they're trying. Again, we see people misidentifying things as this. They're saying it's a bunch of rich people getting rich and we're subsidizing them. That is not the case in the horse industry. So that a big jeer to them, and those of you that are supporters need to look into this.
Dan, can I ask you a question? So they're wanting to take VLT funds and redirect them elsewhere?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, not just VLT funds. Any money going into horse racing from beyond VLT funds. Yes.
This is one of the areas that I am not well versed in. So we may have to have another episode where you give me a little education on everything basically track related. But
we'll have guests on perhaps.
Yes.
This is a big one.
That is a big one. I know obviously the city's gone through it with the VLT money. That's something that's worked into our budget, but almost every year is called into question, and it's really stressful because it's about $3 million that goes into public safety and public works. So I'm familiar with that element a little bit, but that is not a good sign. We need that track.
Yes.
Supports a lot of people. Adam, you got any cheers and jeers?
Yeah, so my cheer is going to be, and Robin, you referenced this earlier. It's for Commissioner Shangvi. She when the police were called subhuman, which is again, it brings up what Hitler did, right? To justify things is you place people below humans. That's was just wrong. She spoke up against it. It's not going against your own is probably the hardest thing you can do, right? And she identifies as, and she is in Rob, I know you don't like this term, but she is in the minority. She is a gay Indian female. But for her to stand up for what's right, and she took a lot of heat for it, I thought showed a lot of leadership and a lot of doing what's right, and that's what we need. Even to the point I wrote, it seems like everything in this world happens for a reason, and maybe I ran against her, and she beat me pretty handily, and maybe Saratoga got that one right. I don't know, but cheers to Commissioner Shangvi for standing on principle and not on what's comfortable or easy. My cheers goes to the Times Union, and more specifically, Wendy Libator. Wendy is, if people, I never really was in tune to this until I got involved in politics, but this is she has taken the national news business model of almost slander, of putting opinions and then saying their fact in their news, and it's always one-sided, and it's always against Saratoga. The latest headline, what we talked about before, was Saratoga official: no charges in teen beating shows incompetence or bias by police. Right? That's not opinion.
I was furious.
Above it says news,
I know.
not opinion. And she's done this. I saw this through the whole campaign trail. She pushes her agenda, and this is what's wrong with America right now, is this extreme polarization. And it really, shame on you, jeer to you, shame on you, Times Union, Wendy. It's really, really despicable what you're doing, because you're exploiting fake headlines to get clicks, to make money, and you're doing it at the expense of good, hardworking people. So please, Times Union, look in the mirror. You got to wake up every morning. You got to say, am I doing what's right in broadcasting the news, or am I really doing a lot of bad in this world? So that's my jeer. Robin, how about you?
I actually did text Wendy yesterday and said, did you make any attempt? I think there's a kid here, by the way. Did one of my kids walk by?
A minute ago.
Yeah, you're a very small man.
I did send her a text to say, did you attempt to source accurate information at all when you wrote this? Because it just seemed to me so heavy-handed in the politics, and they really, a lot of the politics I see in the Times Union coverage comes from one group of Democrats who may or may not be in office right now. It's pretty easy to see where it comes from and where it lands, and it's very disappointing. But my cheer is actually Chowderfest. Chowderfest, you rocked it this year. I was really impressed. They kept it tight. It was packed downtown, 10 to 4, 4 o'clock, streets cleared, everything got buttoned up. There was no kind of that residual nasty drunkenness that I've had in years past. And I just thought that it was really classy, well done, Chowderfest. And I was expecting the opposite. So yay for Chowderfest. Good job. Love seeing the big crowds. I'm going to do a double cheer this week to offset some of my nastier jeer weeks. And also give Manita a cheer. I have to give her a huge cheer, because when everything was going down with the police department these last couple of weeks, I reached out to the city council members. She was the only city council member that got back to me. And we talked on the phone, and she was wonderful. She listened and, was just very much I'll do what I can. Here's what I could, hear what you're saying. Manita? Yes, Manita. Yeah. And she just said, agree or disagree. I just think keeping the communication open and keeping communication channels open is really important. And hearing that for someone like me is that's everything. As long as we keep talking, right? We can work through issues. Everything will be fine. We just need to keep talking. Once you shut down and you go into your silos and, you pick teams and you pick sides, that's when it all goes to shit. So I so appreciated her getting back to me. I felt better just being heard. And then at the city council meeting, I had to point out the subhuman comment as well. And she also really went out and did the same thing and put herself in a spot that's uncomfortable. And you feel really vulnerable, and maybe you're not going to get, great feedback, or maybe you are, you don't know. And I just thought she really did the right thing, and took a lot of integrity, courage. And I just, maybe Adam, maybe the right person won.
Maybe the right person won. I mean, we need more courage. So, it's people the courage to stand up for what's right, not what's for the easy.
Exactly. I agree.
I still would like to see both of you, and not me, but both of you on the city council soon. Maybe a different position, Adam, because if she's doing that good, but I like you too.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Dan. We love you too.
We wish about 2,000 more people thought that way too, but next time, lead your party next time.
Totally. All right, guys, this was awesome. Thank you.
Right.
Check us out. We're on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. We'll see you next week.
Stay charming, Saratoga.
Thanks for watching, folks.